In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, in the presence of the original unconditional moment and all conditional moments have arisen from it will return. In honor of the world host of this worldview, the system admin that administers this existential system from the office. Oh, welcome, members of the human species, gathered around the voice that acts as a light in a temporary darkness. What is the true potential of a species? What appears to be a whole, but from another angle, the mind. In today's lecture, I feel less interested in myself. What does that mean? For some reason, I've had the ability to let the moment be. And it's a matter of, think of it this way, that every human being is existing inside a moment of being. Their humanity is existing in a moment of being. Sorry, guys, I just fixed the microphone. The microphone should be better now. Let me know if it's better. Pretty much, it is this notion that the human being is a presence of a moment as much as it is a specific personality. Your individual life is happening in in a place that is collectively present. In other words, we human beings are under the false premise that knowing only belongs to the human brain, that it is our minds that project reality, but how force moves surpasses the human bound. What does this mean? That means the free will gives an evaluation to a moment it's existing in, but what ends up happening in the moment is considering ways and angles that is further. What does that mean? That means we're not living in a world that is one human being's mind. We're living in a world where the mind feels isolated. There's a sort of divine privacy policy where behind your eyes you have access to an inner generated. In front of your eyes you have access to outer generated things. Now, where I'm going with this is to say that contrary to every human being's belief so far of how human beings know, I am telling you, as one member of the species who has experienced this ridiculously, it has been normal and very simple for me. It is simply realizing that if you are simpler than the moment already knows. Guys, stop. Like, don't joke around. Is it still fuzzy? Why? It shouldn't be. This is a new microphone. All right, guys, I gotta check this. Hold on. I gotta listen to the lecture so far. Give me a minute. All right, guys, I need to put this feathery muffler on the microphone. Hold on. As soon as I find it, just give me a second. In this lecture, I'm trying to go into a rhythm. I'm trying to show you guys that a human being can communicate, can do so many things without having that knowing limited to the idea of self. Is this better? For the love of God, is this better? All right, let's get this over. Okay. All right, guys, hopefully it's audible. I've brought the microphone closer to me. Any closer, then this is not a good microphone, I guess. It should be a really good microphone. It's the DJI 2. So, anyways, God willing, it's audible. I'm going to continue. The whole point of this lecture is not that I'm a little, my personality is a little disinterested. I want my presence to speak to you. I want my presence to explain to you how many moments in this life I have known how to do things. I've known how to be. I've known what's going to happen in the moment, but it wasn't me knowing. It's as if the moment had a destiny and I had just noticed that destiny. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're under the impression that your abilities, your competency, oh human soul, is limited to your form and words. But beyond that, there's a way the world moves. There's a way everything has moved. You think knowing is limited to brains. Brains are just antennas of fields. Is it still out? Somebody tell me, is this working again? Oh, how we try to speak to a world that this speaker hopes can listen. Hopefully it's audible, guys. I don't know what else to do. I'm gonna follow the rhythm. Okay. I have to manage my attention, folks. If I let my attention go too much on the technical stuff, it's recording. I leave it in God's hands, the quality of the audio. I felt like speaking about how the presence of the moment knows before our personality engages in it. I am trying to tell you that we are like antennas, and the true depths of what we are non locally is a field of being. In other words, you can playfully, poetically, if I was alive in ancient times, I may mythologize it like this, that man is a child of form and space. And we think that knowledge is only verified through space. That means it's like the thing in the space that knows what's going on in the space. We never assume if the space already knows what the things are going to be in the space. Guys, I've opened my bookstore and I've shared my poetry from my automatic writing days. Before giving the lectures in 2014, I lived like a hidden writer, and I cannot tell you. I am probably the most witnessed his hand. I have witnessed my hand write, you know, more than me. And what I mean by this is secular audience is they still have a way to access. They call it flow states. Okay, and at times they would call it alignment with the divine will. All right, and based on whatever kind of human being you're now, you are now, you choose with what sort of imagery you want to equip your intelligence. Be at peace. Let the moment settle like ripples on a pond. Do not fear the stillness. Do not fear the silence. There are moments in life where an individual must abandon themselves to see what happens. What do I mean by this? If your life, if the common human life is based on its intelligence, you see, the obsession with physical form has been too much. You know, it's like I feel like I'm used to idea teacher student for all explorers, but it's like if I was a teacher of humanity, I'd be like, man, they taught the students bullshit. Like they taught the students something wrong, right? You have all been indoctrinated into a known world. You have all been given patterns to confine a world that is moving in ways that we can't even turn into patterns. The intelligence of the human being is at what I would politically call an arrival stage. Okay? Think of it this way: there are billions of religious people. These billions of religious people in all their traditions are told to have faith. They're told to have faith in the higher power. The higher power is unconditional. In other words, masses of human beings are guided to having faith. Okay? And faith is pretty much what you do in an unknown world. All of you have been functioning with more faith than analysis. You know, it's as simple as this. Right now, I can move my hand in the air. Okay, do you see that? Like a person can move their hand in the air, they can move their physical body, but you cannot change your DNA. You cannot move every individual cell. If you had access to the subjectified equivalent information of everything that is happening in your body, your brain could not process it. You know, your brain is processing only one physical biological body changing. If your awareness was more sensitive, you would suddenly notice your cells. Okay, but that's too far. That can lead to insanity. What we notice about this realm, okay, is that it is position. This is the biggest clue. Okay, and if you don't look at the position you're in whatever game you're playing, you cannot win. Winning is about position. Okay, and all these people seeking for truth, they're actually seeking they're wondering, in what way should I position myself? Every human being has access to a life that nobody else sees. That's the cool thing. We're all living hidden lives, but we have an unhidden life that others can also see. And it's like when I'm giving this talk, it's like this hidden being that I am, that is my whole moment, It's choosing to move its unhidden aspect to, I guess, reveal the hidden aspect. To me, my access and my activation in the inner realms happened in a sort of intuitive training. Somehow in this world, early on, I ended up being very introverted and shy, but I guess in an uncommon way, because it was a sense of lack of self. I remember when I was in high school, I thought, like, what is this? Everybody has a personality. People have personalities. Why am I just like a silent observer of this? But I have dwelled in that silent observer for a long time. Okay, I am very familiar with just being something. Okay, not being anything. And when you have low self worth or when you dislike yourself, it's equivalent to being capable of liking others. Okay, so think of it this way: there's 8.1 billion human beings. There's people dying and being born every day. Some of these children that are being born, right, their inner realms are not activated. Maybe their outer realms is activated. Okay, maybe in their youth, the kid is playing soccer, the kid is playing sports, the kid is playing around, but he's not being himself. He's just, it's more like an automated state. And I'm trying to tell you that because I didn't have the confidence or I didn't like myself, I became this to myself, I became this sort of low self worth soul, and others became way more important. Okay, but this meant, little did I realize, little did I know as the years went by, that this was all strangely a blessing. What felt like a curse when I was younger, what felt like a force of anxiety from connecting to others, ended up becoming a blessing because I ended up realizing because I didn't fit into the cultural program, I somehow bypassed it. Okay? You never know. You never know. There's something about this life that every soul is upon like assignment or something. There's peaks and troughs. Okay, and when these waves mingle, it creates new realities. From one angle, we're like that, it's just human beings talking. From another angle, no, it's the emergence of new realities. Human beings are acquainted with the concept of birth, correct? Like human beings procreating thousands, right? Birthing a new human being. But when it comes to the inner realms, how do you know that conversations are not being more realities? You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that in some traditions, astral existence is emergent. Okay, guys, I don't know if this is still audible. Let's double check again. Is it audible? Should be audible. Is it audible? Is it is it audible, folks? Somebody say something. Is it audible? All right, let's hope it is. What can I do? I've written a species level intelligence disguised as people. In the moments of our life, I'm simply saying that sometimes if you're think of your identity as solid liquid gas, think of the identity of some shy introverted people being like gas. Think of the identity of very extroverted people, you know, outgoing and extroverted people being solid. Okay, they are beings that are comfortable navigating solidified identities. Some people are not comfortable navigating solidified identities. They're more fluid identities. They let their identity emerge, let's say in accordance to their feeling or their presence in the moment or just the present. Okay, and then there are those who they have understood this realm beyond identity. They have understood that energy is present, and that is an important truth. Okay, that it is all present. Intelligence, as much as it is an activity, it's like we're like, yo, man, is it a noun? We've all been conditioned to treat it as a noun, but in actuality, it's an unconditioned, unknown verb. And what does that mean? The human being is not experiencing a life that includes you're not experiencing a world event or a world where it's only forces that we can um, classify, analyze. What does that mean? We know of the human force. Pretty much, you're looking at an unknown world, unknown natural world, an unknown natural self emerged. This unknown natural self somehow noticed it's a physical self, but it used language and means of subjectivity as a tool to, in some sense, position itself. So think of it this way: first, it was the world. Then there emerged a self in the world. This self noticed it's separate from the world, but it also noticed it is separate from its awareness that it's separate. It's aware that it's aware. That allowed it to access what was found in that awareness, which was language. And so, what does that mean? Humorously, our ancestors opened the early human beings opened their eyes. They're like, this makes no sense. And they're like, let's make it make sense. And they limited the world and they started containing, just like we put pickles in jars, we started to put objects in subjective jars, in subjects. So we have subject, our ancestors freaked out. It was too unknown, it was too big, it was too random. Okay. And they in some sense conditionalized an unknown world. So think of it this way: they started using subjects as tools. Our ancestors, they would use swords and shields, or imagine somebody's ancestor wearing armor. Now imagine that dude wearing armor for so long that it forgets it has skin underneath. You forget you're a different being than what you are externally are, right? So the armor becomes a part of the body in the psychological view, right? So we are these natural biological beings, and after language, using language as a tool which served us in in regards to shared meaning. Okay, the issue is, we think the sword in our hand is our hand now. We think the armor is us now, is our body now. We think that the idea of ourself is equivalent to all of us, to our whole self. It is an error. I'm pretty much saying that we have all. I was born in 1991. We have been born at a time that we, all of us, all human beings, have conditioned to be specific psychological entities that spend their whole life fitting into a specific system. Not only is the idea of you man made, but also the system we're living in is man made. The point I'm trying to say, I was saying it in other talks, depression statistics, suicide statistics, like, anxiety statistics are going up on the planet. And they're like, why? And it's like, isn't it obvious? They took a ancient natural technology and they put it in a man-made unnatural world. So in other words, to be alive as a member of the human species in 2026 is like, yes, I am an original biological natural human, but my identity is unnatural, my civilization is unnatural. Every day I wake up, my behavior is unnatural. We don't see animals in nature put on clothes. Okay, they don't put on clothing. We put on clothing. Why? We acknowledge a subjective invisible dimension where our values are different. Do you know? That means, what's the difference between, like, you see it in shows, like children's shows. When I was young, like there was this kid who would speak to this dog, right? Or like the Muppets or whatever. It's this notion of something, um, other species don't have access to the intelligence server we have access to. Scientifically, through the scientific lens, the answer to this is because of the development of the prefrontal cortex. So we have a way more advanced engine. Now, the argument that comes to consciousness is that the materialists are saying that, okay, if our brain is if this is if we have a more advanced engine, the performance of the car is based on the advanced engine. They're like, yo man, if you have a car that can go faster than other cars, that means it's because of its engine. If it's because of its engine, its intelligence is based on its engine.
And I'll be like, yeah, sure, guys, sure. But there's some dude driving the car. There's some force putting its foot on the gas pedal. There is something in every human experience that is just like you put your foot on the gas pedal. It's the effort to live. Okay? We cannot ignore the similarities of conscious human experience of existence to that of a vehicle in an unknown place, a vehicle on an unknown road, a self in an unknown world. Is it that hard? So we are giving the engine of the car too much credit. The engine is not moving it. There is something that is organizing the human intelligence. And if there is an awareness to more than a conditional environment, so think of it this way: you look at other beings, they live, they are like, I don't want to say it like this, I don't want to say they're cursed, but I want to say they are chained. When you look at lesser species, they are attached to their environment. If you want to know what the difference between like an intelligent being and a non-intelligent being, it has nothing to do with IQ. Intelligence has to do with awareness. I'll give you an example. If I'm in a room with 10 people, the first thing I would do is go and check and ask those 10 people to see how far they see. If I see that if anyone sees further than me, I will automatically designate them as the leader of the moment. Do you understand? It's not, let me say it this way. What I'm saying is, human beings are not at the mercy of resources. We are at the mercy of our furthest awareness. All human beings wake up every day. What do? You are either focused on outer expansion or inner expansion. This is not what an advanced species looks like, folks. No way, in no way, shape, or form ever convince yourself that human beings in 2026 are advanced. The only way we have been able to keep ourselves ego, like the only way the ego, okay, has managed to stick around is because it has convinced the moment that everything should be defined by the past. Most people think that they own their lives. You don't. The past owns you. You wake up living in a world that everything you see is defined by the past. Isn't that freaking weird? That's freaking weird, man. That means we are living in a world where there's past, present, future, yet everything I see in the future must be defined based on the past. Then what the F is hope? Who says that everything only has a value from past to present? Have you ever thought about future to present? I am telling you, the species will soon realize the way intelligence is present is beyond human archetypes, beyond the way we have humanized it. The human is a condition. The best way to explain what's going on this planet is in unknown conditions. The conditional, the human condition is here. More than I believe I'm a human being, I'm an unknown force present through the human condition. Because I am present in the human condition, as all of you are, we are tasked with advancing the human condition. In other words, we have a responsibility, because whether assign it to our prefrontal cortex or the ghost driving the machine, the spirit driving the machine, all souls are the commands present in a field. In other words, this might be one of the most difficult things for a human being to say in 2026. Yes, to all witnessing this moment, to all, yes, there were humans that were aware this is a simulated Earth. Within intentions of powers beyond, the world takes shape through the intentions of powers beyond. I thought life was about solving something. I thought it was a problem on an exam. I thought it was a passcode that you had to find the passcode. I thought it was like a Rubik's Cube. You just needed the right algorithms and you would get out of the simulation. It is not the case. A being is judged not by its weakness, it is judged by its greatest ability. Imagine you are someone who you can solve a problem that only you and your DNA can. You could be the most messed up person, but you would have a value. It's a civilizational game. The species is waking up to it. In other words, we're reaching that time in human history where human beings are, where whatever we are is realizing it is not just a human experience. It's like the same moment the human is experiencing all of existence is experiencing the human being. How have we been able to see intelligence from one side of the coin but not the other? It doesn't make sense. We think individuals are living in collective systems. How have we been avoiding that collective systems live in individuals? There was this yogi by the name of Kabir. He says, many know that the drop merges into the ocean, but few know that the ocean merges into the drop. In other words, many know that individuals are living on Earth, but few know that what the Logos was a species level intelligence living through all of us. That species level intelligence is not God, it is the continuation of the individual's privacy policy. It is the realization that you do have a privacy of knowing how, like accessing reality in a way that nobody else has. In other words, behind your eyes, we're all like these unknown forces, and what is in the total extent of your awareness surpasses what you communicate. In other words, we're way more, it's like we're these advanced unknown beings living in this not so advanced human time. And life is brilliant. There was this I forget, Matthew Hussey or something, this YouTuber who was like helping people with their relationships. I'll never forget it. In one of his videos, I was seeing like one of his videos. In one of his videos, he was saying this girl walks up to him and says, I am so happy to be alive in the same era as you. And I was like, what a compliment. Right. And the guy was like, oh, thank you. And all of this. And the guy goes, and then it made me think like, yo, man, how many, I have never, like, I should probably spend way more time thinking of like, um, how grateful I am being alive in the presence of the type of intelligence we find on Earth now. That means I'm telling you this. There's a level one of life is an individual game. Level two of life is a species game. Level three of life is a universal game. Right now, we're at the end of level one on Earth. the speech on a collective level. Individuals will wake up. You will see a poetic revolution. You will see creative revolutions. And these creative revolutions will be inspired out of fear and awe, or it will be inspired out of awe, which is like fear and amazement at the same time. Children will start speaking of worlds, the future generations, give it like 10 to 20 years, you'll see. They'll start speaking as if they have access to um, a different activation server. I've noticed the pattern of my soul. I was born in 1991. I was bilingual. My parents immigrated from one country to another country. I was alive at a time where in my youth I climbed trees and stayed up playing PlayStation 1 with my cousins. You know, and it was I was there from the transition of a purely dependent on natural activities. That means from 1991 up to 2026, which I've had the privilege of attending existence experientially. I have noticed that behaviors are becoming more and more unnatural because the way we're surviving is relying on the information and technological age. So the human agenda has always been an unnatural parallel existence to the natural world. We chose to evolve at speeds that surpassed how nature evolves. And that's what made us appear different to ourselves. Are there any questions? I don't know why I feel I should ask for this lecture. Many traditions acknowledge the logos. Many individuals that seem to us to have been more ascended, to have lived a life more on an ascendant angle. Let me tell you stories, guys, as someone who has, like a bird, flown through the forests of human conception. Did you know that Socrates, from the beginning of his life, was guided by this force in his experience called the inner oracle? And every moment of his life, the inner oracle would tell him, go in this room, don't go in this room, leave this place. All right, this is going to work out, this isn't going to work out. And Socrates was blamed for disseminating like pseudo enlightenment talk, at the time, right? Where people believed in like Greek mythology. And so in some sense, it was like he was blamed, accused for corrupting the youth of Athens. And so he's sentenced to court by like his enemies or whatever. And when he goes there, right, the inner oracle tells him, you have to go. This is like your destiny. And he steps into that courtroom and he gives a speech. And I don't remember exactly his speech, but it's some like next level speech where he explains the inner oracle and he tells them. And it's very sad because you want to know what the hardest thing about like empathizing with a time traveler is. To be ahead of your time means to be understood by a world you are not going to live in. It's a lonely life because your reality is different than those around you. You cannot connect. Everybody is seeing themselves as an object, and they own the subject as an idea. So the idea of them owns it, their whole moment. And this kind of being cannot get along with a being that is actually has realized it's unknown. Before you do anything, it's unknown. Before someone does something, it's neither good or bad. It is the consequence that renders it good or bad. It is the result that renders it good or bad. Do you know, if you listen to my talks and your life is getting better, then it's like something good. Do you understand? The result is good. But if it's not, then it's the result is bad. Maybe the talks are not for you. Do you know? To me, my lectures, these lectures, I poetically see they have a will of their own. I'm not even kidding. There are moments when I'm driving, like if the viewers want to know how I listen to my lectures, if you notice, all lectures have been coded. So I go around about the day and I look at the time. Like right now, I look at the time. It's 11:10. Okay. So I would, in my mind, would somehow play with that number, and I would either go listen to lecture 11:10, or I would listen to the newest lecture like 2000, and then I would make it like 2210. You know? And in some sense, I would just see a number. I would go on YouTube, type in MW1110, and that exact lecture pops up. And I would listen to that lecture not as if it's something my past self was saying, but I would listen to it as if, what do I need to hear about this now? Okay, my father in real life, since me and my brother, since early days when we were young, he came up to us and he's like, kids, whenever you listen to someone, try to take away at least one good sentence. You could listen to somebody talk for 3 hours, but try to take one good sentence away, from what they've said. And later on, I understood what he was saying was that the smart people are not trying to know things. They're trying to quickly figure out what is unknown in their experience. So, in other words, a being, if let's say you're a parent and you see your child being fascinated by the unknown, or if they see something, like, it's all about asking questions. Okay. And when, as a shy, introverted kid, questions are like it's like trying to pull King Arthur's sword and you're not King Arthur. You know, I remember in school I had so many questions to ask the teachers, but I never did because I was, too brainwashed and trying to fit in. It was the most, but like, sometimes you look at your own past and you're like, man, why didn't I realize everybody was experiencing themselves for the first time? Everybody is born experiencing their DNA and what they are for the first time. It's all about a sophistication of our awareness and the true realization of what advancement means. All these beings emerge in this world and they live different lives. We are wondering about the journey of meaning. How often do human beings talk about the soul? It's like they talk about alpha and beta, right? In civilization, they talk about lower class, higher class. In civilization, you're pretty much going to, just like a Cartesian plane where there's X and Y axis, you will see there's a horizontal spectrum and there's a vertical hierarchy to everything. That means human beings use the technique of comparison to evaluate. And all Middle Eastern, you know, kids raised in Middle Eastern families know this because their mothers, I think it's some divine protocol, all Middle Eastern mothers come to their kids and they're like, yo, do you know that kid's that you know my friend's son is like so much better than you. What are you doing with your life, son? You know what I mean? Right? Like Middle Eastern parents compare. Like that's a really, I guess that's a tactic. You see, you got to think of it this way. The best sentence I've heard, one of the coolest sentences I've heard in this life, is strategy is how you win the war, tactics are how you win the battle. By the way, guys, this is on a random note. Anybody who's a man Stop drinking water from plastic bottles. Stop using plastic. All right, back to it. I'm pretty much saying that for us to think that we're individual human beings assigned, as specific individual ideas is just from the human perspective. The world is still unknown. Everybody who's like, yo, man, prove this is true, they've been saying it in a tiny, tiny pocket of the observable universe. I am not against analysis, but I do understand that we cannot index the whole cosmos. It's like you know what it is? It's like to seek truth as a noun is like they're like, yo, bro, you're in a changing world. You're also in a world that's edgeless. You can't see its edge. Good luck trying to be an individual here. And so I'm like, oh, what the F? Civilization's based on individualism. And this whole time we've been trying to be individual in a changing world. Can somebody explain to me, the fact that there's people happy and peaceful, that's an achievement. Anybody depressed, stressed, having anxiety, guys, that is normal. You're a natural species living an unnatural life in a man-made realm. That's all normal. It is peace. Let me, if you want me to tell you what the achievements are, as a body, as an existential being, I think procreation is the purpose of the body. We are here to expand the human race, and we are here to overpopulate the planet to the degree that we snap out of the illusion of nationalism and we awaken to our true nature. What we have, when I've looked in the mirror, I have not seen a Persian human being or a Canadian human being. I have just seen the human DNA. I am trying to unite the species by saying, how dare we identify with colors on a chunk of land before we have identified with being members of the human species? Yeah, it's super difficult and warfare based if you have like a bunch of different nations trying to allocate resources compared to one species allocating resources. Do you understand? In other words, nationalism becomes a subclass. Do you know that? That means in the future, if you see someone who's a nationalistic patriot, it's not that they're still that's a level of advancement. They're not that advanced. It's like an ism. In the same way you have racism, okay, you have human beings, 8.1 billion humans, all of them in different parts of the world. What is culture? Culture is their language, both behavioral and non behavioral. So, what is culture? It's the way people have been looping on a chunk of land. And you know why people hate this? They don't allow philosophers in the science classroom. They have to. I'm not a scientist, but if I was, I'd be like, bro, don't let philosophers in the science classroom. You know why? They will destroy. A philosopher talking to a scientist is like legit, like Arjuna talking to like Krishna. Do you know what I mean? Philosophers are deities compared to, I'm sorry, um, those people who just live in a fixed context. Like, do you know what I mean? The philosopher does not fear the unknown, the true philosopher. They will forever defend the unknown. The scientific mind has to close the system or they cannot give you numbers. So the philosophers are designed to open systems, break them open from a distance. I perceive myself not per se as a philosopher, but just like I used to play Counter Strike, um, like DDoS 2, there was like a Magnum sniper. I used to be a sniper in that game. Pretty much all the video games I play, I tend to be snipers in them. Do you know? Long range, in the same way, I don't see myself as a philosopher, but I can take out my philosophy, my views, my the depth of what I've explored about this realm and snipe out ideas. It's not hard. Let me tell you why. It's all about fear. You might not believe it, but the access to truth has to do with fear. And the emergence of fear has to do with how the conditions of the moment are set. I was someone who I did not like insects when I was young. Okay, I still don't care that much for them, but to me they're like, the only thing I care about insects is that we don't like, um, have like these rays that make them into giants. Like, there's you don't have time to fight with giant insects. The only way I would consider it is that would be an ingenious. Oh my god, I just discovered a new chapter for my sci-fi. Anyways, folks, what I'm telling you is this life is designed. If you're a younger person hearing me, like, calm down and understand as you live it, you're gonna experience more patterns. And just like chess masters, to me, like, this is like, I'll give you an example. A 90-year-old person is like a chess grandmaster. Okay, a young person is like low elo chess player. Okay, for me, who I've lived 12,500 days, that's my elo, you know? But imagine somebody who's lived 90 days. What does that equal to? What is 90 times 365? Okay, it's like 36. Yeah, I mean, I could have just done it by 100. Okay. 32,850. A 90-year-old person lives around 32,850 days on this planet. Okay, but they say, I remember reading somewhere, they say 75 is the average lifespan. That's 27,375 days. Okay, so human beings, the experience of human life, unless technology advances and all these industries that are providing consumers with products that destroy them, like, I don't know, in 2026 cigarettes kill you, but who knows, maybe in the year 3026 cigarettes heal you. Imagine, like, all the cigarette companies are like, we took our billions we took from all these smokers and created a cigarette that would heal your lungs. Imagine how genius that would be. Imagine all fast food stores are going to become medical centers, and they're going to be like, sorry, consumer, we fed your ancestors garbage, and now we're going to feed you treasure instead of trash. You know, the whole point of it, guys, is the emergence of species level thinking. This is one of those things Mr. Within has been put on this earth to tell you, okay? That you are generating meaning from within you to what is outside of you. Guys, when I give these talks, in the middle of it I feel like Maximus from Gladiator. You know, it's like when I'm about to explain the unseen, but it's beyond my jurisdiction, but I somehow get close as I can to explaining it. Then I look at the moment and I'm like, oh my God, existence, are you not entertained by how I'm experiencing you? Are you not entertained? Guys, all of us will leave this system. Okay, the average lifespan is 27,375 days. You're listening to a member of the human species that says, hey, let's build an advanced civilization. There is nothing cooler than that. The past, we've already seen it. The present, we're already seeing it. The future is what remains. Since ancient times, the ancients understood this is even in modern psychotherapy. Do you know that in order for a person to resolve their past, they must be responsible for it in the present. In order for a person to resolve their present, the problems in their present, they must be responsible for their future. Do you know that means if you in other and if you want to be responsible for your future, it is also known in more, let's say, deeper traditions, you must live for the afterlife. In Islam, in the Islamic universe, the Muslim is introduced to a realization that your task in this world, in the Holy Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it says, there's a verse that says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God created mankind and jinn kind for the sole purpose of worshiping me. God has created two classes of beings, and in Islamic theology, um, angels are beings made of light, commanded into existence, but they're made of light. Humans, the human soul, are beings that are commanded into existence and are made of clay. Something interesting about clay, it adapts, it can be resculpted. Then you have jinn kind. Jinn kind were made from a smokeless flame. Now, let me tell you something. If a Christian and a Muslim were having a conversation, the Christian would go to the Muslim and say, "Hey, man, do you believe that was a fallen angel named like Satan or what you guys call Shaitan?" And the Muslim will say, "We don't believe it's an angel. Muslims do not believe Shaitan was an angel. Shaitan was a pious jinn. It was such a pure being that had managed to reach close to the system admin. Okay, but it was not a being made of light or clay." So in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the system admin, the unconditional original moment, and the system admin beyond this world room, the uncreated being, we adapt to conditions, conditions adapt to the absolute being. Committed a sin according to through the Islamic theological lens. And that sin was not deceiving man. It was rejecting one of the original qualities of being, which is God's all knowingness. In other words, the celestial theological condition is that of an original being creating an original creation and another created being, originally created being, rejecting the value of that creation. Do you know what that means? I interviewed someone, they said that, I asked them, "What do you think the devil is?" They said it's the negation of itself. In other words, it's legit like a created being rejecting its creation, the creator. That means the moment Shaitan considered that God is not perfect was the moment Shaitan was created by an imperfect being, therefore itself became imperfect. But in Islam, it is said God is all merciful. All merciful means this power forgives all. Now, at the same time, this all forgiving power has presented this imagery where God cannot be humanized or conditionalized because it is beyond us, but this higher order process is beyond the simulated lower order processes that we are. But God has, as even though all merciful, has created hell. And to me, I was like, whoa, the Islamic afterlife and eschatology is very different than the Hindu and Vedic eschatology. In the yogic eschatology, you live a life on earth and then you die. And after this life, you go into the bardo. The bardo is acknowledged by various ancient traditions. In Islam, they call it the realm of the barzakh. In Tibetan Buddhism, they call it the bardo. So in Tibetan Buddhism, they when somebody dies, like I believe they cremate them, and then like a bunch of monks for lamas for like 40 days or something keep singing sutras to guide that soul in the bardo, like the lost soul to go towards the findings of the original reality. In Vedic eschatology, you die. After you die, if you had done good deeds on earth, okay, you will go inside the moon. Inside the moon, you will finish your heavenly credit. That means if you did good deeds on earth, you will go inside the moon and you will live in a paradise based on the good you did. And after that, you will return back on earth. You will return back to earth. And when you return back to earth, until you figure it out, this process will keep repeating. In other words, it doesn't matter if you're good or bad, you need to get out of this simulation from in accordance to the Vedic view. Okay, and that's called enlightenment. And samadhi is like a being walking in the light of the original, towards the light of the original. In other words, in Islamic view, it's like heaven or hell. And it's kind of like, if you, again, you can't humanize the unseen, but if it was like a factory, manufacturing factory, where the ineffective products were just thrown away and the effective products made it out to market. To me, it's like we're being tested. Just it's like strangely the same test as Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were being tested to see if they prioritize the original value compared to the simulated value. If you look at it in the through the theological lens, Adam and Eve were in paradise, and Shaitan simulated himself, shape shifted into a snake. And this serpent deceived Adam and Eve. It made them forget the original. And I firmly, guys, this is a very important sentence I'm saying so simply. The way out of this simulation is to remember the original power. It is not to go sit somewhere and think you're enlightened. It is not to think, have ultimate power in this realm and think that's enlightenment. Enlightenment is realizing what is living in this world is greater than the human experience. In other words, just like human beings are positioned to learn how to get along with one another, eventually we will learn how to get along with fields of intelligence. It's so beautiful. You don't see it. Somehow I see it. It's like going through the obvious common sense view that, okay, knowledge has branched out. These branches will branch out. Eventually, we will reach a point in knowledge where we will see, like you, we don't treat it that way because we're in civilization 1.0. It's very unadvanced acknowledgement of value of intelligence. But in civilization 2.0, they will know what kind of souls will be born before they're born. I'll give you an example. Like right now, we look at it and we're like, yo, man, technology is exponentially evolving. In the future, we may very well. What is the honor of our lives? In honor of what you're living. What are you living for? 8.1 billion humans on this world. What are we all living for? What are we all doing? We are living, usually, the human being organizes itself into a purpose and lives for that greater purpose. Now, that purpose can entail what's real to it, or it can entail things that are real beyond it. The future generations will be kind. The future generations, we will fear their problems, but there will be souls born just to handle those moments. In other words, the fact, you know what it is? Like if extraterrestrials, if in a sci-fi setting, in an abstract hypothetical view, if there were advanced beings, they would come on land on Earth. They wouldn't invade us. They would scold us. They would be like, "You guys don't understand how privileged you are. You're a species out of all the species in this world that is not just higher in consciousness, but that has system admin privileges. We have invisible values. There's invisible moments as much as visible moments we're destined to be in. From one angle, I can these talks. From another angle, I could say whether I wanted to or not, this moment was destined for this talk to exist in. The knowing can be limited to my individual self, or it can be that I am a presence. It's like I'm alive now. The viewers age like the living presence. You can come and help me build an advanced civilization, but after then it's like I look at my talks and I'm like, you guys, you know, it's like, okay, man, I might have regrets in this life, but at least there's like 10,000, an army of 10,000 versions of myself. you know do you know what it is? I see people don't realize it. Like we see we take we the internet is something very simple right now. For the future generations, they will be stepping inside it. And when they step inside it, they might forget the outer realms. And then there is a human being from 2026 who has recorded 10,000 moments of talking in the natural realm. There's going to come a moment in history where everything's going to be so, they're going to make so many less mistakes that they're going to be like, yo, man, in 2026, humans still made mistakes. They still had silliness, humor, because that's how we've been getting through it. It's all about intensity evaluation. What value are you giving to reality in accordance to the intensity it has for you? Some people are scared of heights, some people are not. Some people believe they deserve love, some people believe they don't. Some people love everything, some people don't love anything. Some people are fascinated to be here, some people are just waiting for this game to finish. It's possible. I used to be like that. You know what it is? It's like the same attitude when somebody tries to play a game, and then it's like something doesn't let them, something second time they try doesn't let them, third time doesn't let them, fourth time there is no fourth time. They just stop playing the game because it has to do with a sense of honor. The human being is going performance based, especially for the masculine energy. It's like, how do I say it? In the inner realms, you're standing in a certain way. But how are you? It's like, let me say it this way. It's about a person realizing they are their own audience member. So you can do something that you feel like a fool in front of yourself. You can do something that you feel like a genius in front of yourself. You can do something that it embarrasses you in front of yourself. And at some point, you can even reach a sensitivity where you wake up and every day, any sound that enters your ear is like conceptual geometry. And you're like, why am I seeing this geometry right now? Anyways, folks, this notion that there's a species level being disguised as people is just where we're heading as a species. We're outgrowing the way the character, how we have been a human in the world story. We're outgrowing subjective ownership of a moment that is truly unknown, and that will make us realize that force is living many lives, but a specific human body identifying with a specific idea is living one specific life, I guess. So think of it this way: your energy is present in more ways than the human ways your presence are, in more than the human ways your present can interpret. So it's a mystery. You're an unknown being in an unknown world. Everything else is that was essential, but we must acknowledge our subjective meaning as a method rather than us. Again, mistaking the sword for our hand is an error. Mistaking the tool as us is an error. If Tony Stark thinks he is the Iron Man suit, you know, that's an error. But if he realizes that there is a deeper reality with an identity different than how the identity of activation in a realm is, to me, from the moment I enter the conscious waking state, I've entered a workstation. Existence is my workplace. Experience is what's working there. Who am I employed by? It took me a while to realize I am not just employed by the limits of my vision. It's an activity that is collaborative. That means the most intelligent thing that an ego can do is realize it is not the king of its limited truth. There's many ways. The future generations are going to see all our blind spots. The future generations might see shortcuts that I don't even see now, you know? But they're going to look at me and be like, yo, man, this guy noticed some things. He noticed some things were off. He noticed that, like, you're telling me 8.1 billion beings that behind their eyes, they're unique. In front of their eyes, they have common ground. Like, what is this? What is this 8.1 billion human beings in front of their eyes in the same MMO map? Well, it's obvious. Humans do care for the human idea, the human vision, and now the human vision, which is the internal generation of meaning upon the outer realms, it needs to advance. That means the most advanced among the human species are those who've understood that becoming consciously responsible alone is the real game. So think of it this way: noob souls are they're living known lives. More advanced souls are all they've already lived a known life. They've seen it, and they're living an unknown life before the game is complete. I'm telling you, for me, it was as revolutionary as a moment of realizing, wait a minute, I have not been a known being. I've been an unknown being identifying with known forms. There's more unknown than the known. When we forget this, simulations enslave us as if they are real. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced, my vision is that if reality is a simulation, and it's massive layers of simulations, and unless you realize the system admin, which is a living unconditional presence, it's like it's like who you know rather than what you know. Scientists are all about what you know. Religion is about who you know, but the depths of religion is not about a conditional faith. It's about unconditional faith. That means when Christ did not worship himself, Christ on the cross was saying, "Forgive them, for they do not know." He was talking to the original, unconditional creator force. In other words, the simulated seek the original. That is the greatest action. We are, the species is pretty much awakening from a looping past into a realization that we are in the presence of the Most High. We are in the presence of the most advanced state that all being can be. We not only we are not alone, it is all happening. The performance of existence is happening in the ultimate experiential containment of a higher order process. What does this mean? In Islam, there is an understanding that creation knows how it has been created. Creation knows the creator. The created worship the creator before being conscious, because the simulation, the simulated state has only the original state to return to. We are, in other words, rise, mankind, rise. Seek the original world, the original earth, the original self, the original moment, the original being. Because there is something within us that cannot ignore that it is an awareness of an original source code command. Whatever your ego code is, either through simplicity or complexity, you have found your body in your presence. You are the presence of the whole moment. You find your body, the objects and subjects there. It's like it's not that I, as an experiential being, have come to meet existence. Every day, existence meets me, which is fascinating. We're reaching the intersection point of the conscious intersection of an individual awareness to the collective and a collective awareness to the individual. In the presence of our greater lives, may the advanced potential of the species activate. Greatness was in the room first before failure. That's the clue. Before an imperfect world, there was a perfect moment. All simulations are present within an original power. What other secret do you want? It's not a secret. It's just you're an energetic being. Seek the source of this energy. The source of this energy is beyond the world room. Therefore, from inside existence, we cannot explain why existence exists. But if we trust beyond the world trusts us to share. Unconditional faith to an unconditional moment as a conditional, limited conditional being is an ultimate act. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.